On this episode of AV Week, Netgear providing design services for AV integrators. AVIXA has brand new experiential awards and selling in the world of soft codec VC. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 422, recorded Friday, September 20th, 2019. Are you experienced?
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box, and by Christie Digital.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, his name is Paul Weatherhead, and he is from AV Junction. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And also with us from the great state of Texas, his name is Luke Jordan. Welcome, sir.
It's a republic, but glad to be here. Thanks, Tim.
You joined the union like 150 years ago, dude.
Depends on your perspective.
Well, here's the deal. I don't have to show my passport yet when I go into Texas. So
you're welcome.
And also with us to discuss everything is Mr. Brian McClymans, just outside of the great city of Chicago. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it looks like you have a Cubs shirt on. So.
No, I don't.
Yeah. All right. Continuing on. First story comes to us from our friends over at AV Network. AVIXA has launched the AV Experience Awards. They will come your way during InfoComm in 2020. Happens in Vegas. The awards, you can register for them now. You can sign up for them now all the way up through February. From the story, quote unquote, Dan Goldstein says, audiovisual technology has the power to enhance how we experience the world around us, from how we shop, bank, attend sporting events, check into hotels, and so much more. These awards are going to be awarded to folks who are designing and applying AV technology to a multitude of diverse environments. Luke, we'll start with you on this one. Is this just kind of a natural progression of where AVIXA has been heading for, I'm going to say, about 4 or 5 years with the whole, not only the name change from InfoComm to AVIXA, but also the experience drive that they've been doing with Tide and other events?
I think this is definitely within the same kind of road that they're going down, focusing on experience. And I think that's the right way to look at it. My least favorite case studies are when we list out, this is the gear that was used for the switching, and then, they use these speakers and this control processor to tie it all together. Just kind of a bill of materials and a case study to me is the least interesting thing. The reason I read AVNation case studies, different, magazines, all that, is, what solutions are other integrators and designers and consultants using to solve complex problems or to engage people, which really is that whole experiential thing. I'm pretty familiar with what products are out there, but it's how are people tying them together and tying the hardware and software in a special solution that really does interact with people, solve a complex problem, engage people. So I think it's a great move how they're moving away from what gear was used and how is it hooked up together possibly, and more towards how is this problem being solved in unique ways. And it's kind of a similar coin, but I think there's a nuanced line dividing, focusing on the gear and focusing on how it solved that problem in a creative way. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
I don't think it's nuanced at all. I think it's a big, thick line between, gear listing and, experience solving. Now, that being said, AVNation has their awards. We focus on the equipment as well as some of the experience. More, we have a category about technical support as well as education, but we still say, what's your favorite projector, right? What's your favorite control system for the unit?
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you, Leo. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of where they go with this in this first year.
And I think what's going to be telling on that is when they select they've got different categories. When they kind of select a winner for each category, how they present that solution and how they picked that winner. If they kind of get into here's a list of gear and how it was used, that's really kind of the same thing as a typical case study. So I think really the way that they're going to differentiate this award from other awards or case studies in the industry really is going to be the write-up. And if it was just a write-up, I think they need to have an experience in how they announce the winner and showcase that.
All right, Mr. Weatherhead, same kind of question. This is something that AVIXA has had in the past, Infocom has had in the past. They've done awards for things like, projects. They've also done awards for other things. They still do things like the CTS Holder of the Year, the Women in AV Award, but this is something completely different. What do we think about them going down this path and honoring the experience?
Yeah, certainly. I think I agree with sort of your initial statements there. I think the brand name and the whole sort of direction that they're going in, it certainly aligns with that. And I think also if we kind of look back, let's say 10 years, technology has completely changed as far as in the AV world. So there's much more possibilities to use the equipment and, create these amazing experiences. So I think it's great. I also think another thing that it can really kind of challenge the integrators, instead of looking at sort of projects and design just from a product perspective, let's see how they can, really make these great experiences for, the users that are going to be using them.
All right. Brian, as the manufacturer here, bring you around on this. Luke said, some of the case studies, they can get a little bit product heavy with product, names and numbers and things of that nature. Awards like this and case studies like this are really interesting to him because it showcases a problem-solving solution, right? Here's an experience that somebody's had with they've identified the problem all the way through to the end. How do you as a manufacturer get in early and help not only your clients and your integrators, your dealers, but also their clients as well, kind of get to that experience?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I am glad that AVIXA is doing more of the experience awards because we have been doing much more. People used to do white papers in the past. They would really just be product focused and didn't really do much other than promote the brand that was doing it. And now we're doing video-based case studies that highlight the building of the solution, but then also why it was done. So we're asking, we get the end customer to get on camera and talk about why they actually spent the money to do this and how it worked for them and how they believe it's going to, impact their customers, which is exactly whether the customers be employees or actual customers that are paying to be a part of that location. So that way, we're using those as well as architects want to know. No architects want to do it the first time. They always ask. When we go and talk to an architect and we say, hey, we can do this type of solution, they go, okay, show it, prove it, provide us with something that, we don't want to be the guinea pig. We want to see that you've done it before. So that's exactly why we believe strongly in these experience type, solutions. We're actually spending quite a bit of money every quarter to develop these.
Well, sometimes they want to see you, prove it once or twice, two or three times actually. First time is a nice proof of concept. Now let's see it in the real world and make sure you can replicate that, right?
Exactly.
All right, guys. Next story comes to us from our friends over at Sonic Communications. Netgear has introduced a new engineering support center for commercial AV integrators. What I find interesting about this story is this is the first or second one I'm aware of from a switch manufacturer that's providing AV engineering services centered on the switch. If you've ever contemplated or argued the fact that the AV industry is not in the IT space, this is the end of that argument. Just for the record, this is it. Paul, you work with a lot of folks, both on the IT and the AV side. So a program like this, how does it help the industry get more into the IT side?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've been seeing this convergence of AV and IT for a while now. So I think you're right. I think it's here. in my sort of line of work with sort of staffing and talking with a lot of, installers, having that, engineering support, more resources available to brush up on, their knowledge and execute better on site. It's always helpful. And I think this is definitely what our industry needs, sort of manufacturers stepping up and providing these resources and access to this information that's going to help everybody.
Brian, same sort of question here. You guys are getting more into different areas. You've got the kiosk happening now. As our industry evolves and as the manufacturer here, how are you guys able to keep kind of on the edge and maybe even beyond the edge, because you're having to develop some of these programs 3 to 4 to 6 months ahead of time? How are you able to stay on the cutting edge of both technology but also the education of your dealers?
Well, that is definitely a big challenge because there's so much information coming to everybody at any given point, from the major manufacturers to everybody in the industry. How can anybody be an expert in everything? So we do have challenges with that. We do have 2 full-time trainers that go out to our customers and train them on all the latest products we have. And we actually take back the comments that they get from the installers and the customers about what they're looking for, because they usually tell us what they're currently involved in, with what type of integration they need, especially with our displays. What type of monitoring, are they adding cameras in there for real-time data capture? Things are rapidly changing on a daily basis, and we do try and keep our ears to the as close to the installers as possible.
All right. Luke, Brian made a good point. Not everybody can know everything or learn everything. As an integrator, how do you decide who's going from your team to what manufacturer's training, or who's going to be the expert here, right? Who's going to be our switch person? Who's going to be our expert in mounting? Who's going to be our expert in AEC, let's say?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is just understanding people's giftings. I've got a great smile. I'm really bad at math. Knowing that about myself, I'm good at sales. So the same way we look at kind of our engineering group, we definitely have a guy that is just really great at doing detailed rigging. We put him on all of our large stadium projects, and he's able to handle those complex, working with structural engineers, doing, very detailed rigging details and drawings. We have a guy that came from a lighting background, a guy from an audio background. And so I think people just kind of naturally segment themselves on what they're interested and drawn in, and they are more than willing to become an expert through several educational offerings. You've got, AVIXA, you've got SynodCon, you've got manufacturer trainings, you've got all kinds of options to get educated, to get certified. But at the end of the day, the people that become experts aren't forced to, that they want to do that. What I really like about what Netgear is doing is it allows us as the AV industry to say we are the experts and we want to keep all this in-house. I can't tell you how many times on AV over IP projects the owner or someone on the design team says we really want to have the structured cabling and IT guys have the network switch that all of your AV over IP equipment goes on. But there's not always a good handoff between this manufacturer and that switch. And so if we are able to kind of leverage this AV company and this switch manufacturer are working together on a partnership, and we've got pre-configured switches for this use, and it's all in the AV contractor's scope, that leaves one throat to choke. So it either guarantees that the system is going to work as intended, as specified, and if something doesn't work, I can then maybe go to Netgear and say, hey, you guys recommended this switch for this project that we collaborated on, so we need you guys to be a part of solving that problem. And so instead of finger pointing, we're actually fixing things and making sure that our clients are happy and increasing awareness and trust in AV professionals on these big collaborative projects. So having a designer that is interested, trained, and plugged in, and a partnership between manufacturers on this type of technology really are going to produce the best solution overall.
Well, let me ask you a question here, and Brian and Paul, I'm bring you both in on this as well. creating that partnership that's true, Luke, but also making sure that the folks that are creating that training is getting their feedback. Brian, you mentioned it before, the fact that you guys actively seek out your students, the people, your dealers, to make sure that they're getting the most out of it, but also that they're giving you, hey, we're seeing this come down the pipeline, or hey, we're being asked for this, right? And then that way you guys can kind of it's a constantly it's a feedback loop where you guys are getting feedback from the dealers and then creating that education based on what they're seeing. So.
And one of the biggest challenges too is obviously it's very difficult to learn about what's needed out there in the field for our customers. Bringing in and making sure that our engineers and our product managers understand what's being asked, and so that you can marry the two needs together. The need of the outside with what the need to develop a new solution is within our engineering team, so they understand what they're developing is what the customers are asking for. So in an ever-evolving marketplace that we're in, the more communication you have in linking people together is important. And in many cases, especially with like direct view LED currently, we're actually flying our engineers that typically have never gone out on an install for a TV mount. We're flying them out to locations just to see what they designed and understand, hey, these are the challenges that they face, real world challenges versus, behind a desk. And understanding it. It really does help and is making our product better each quarter.
Well, it also has to, because here's the thing: you mentioned the two differences there. You could put up a TV mount in your office with very little issues. It would be difficult to replicate some of the LED walls that you guys are involved with. Talking about New York Times Square and things of that nature. That's kind of hard to replicate in your office. So.
Right.
All right, guys. Last story here comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. HBSC is putting together 5,500 hardware endpoints with 290,000 users for Zoom. 290,000 Zoom licenses. I'll let everybody except for Luke do the math on that, because apparently he's as bad at math as I am. The interesting story here. You've got almost 300,000. Let's just call it that. Zoom licenses. Obviously, they are the big behemoth in the world of at least soft codec UC and soft codec VC. Brian, I'm going to start with you on this. It's kind of a new world than it was 5 years ago. Zoom went public this past April, raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $700 million in an afternoon. Not a bad day at work with their IPO. But this has become kind of a soft codec world with hardware endpoints, right? That the story mentions about 5,000 or 5,500 hardware endpoints. As you're talking with dealers, obviously Peerless is going to have some portion of that, because Huddle Spaces is one of the areas that you guys work really, really well in. But you're go back to a little bit to education. What are your dealers telling you that's changing about the sales process in this new soft codec augmented by hardware sales world?
Well, the interesting thing about it is this is one that the product solutions evolve and change based on what the new video conferencing solution is at the time. And because Zoom rooms don't require a lot of back boxes or devices that go behind the camera, we're able to go back and use some of our just regular mounting solutions for those types of things, where in the past we used to have to build pretty complicated solutions with drop-down trays, with rack units to house a bunch of different pieces of electronics that are weight-based. We used to have spring-released products that pop down below that a installer could go and change out the codec or change out device back there. Now, with Zoom type of connections, the mounting solutions actually have gone back to being easier than they were, let's say, just a past year or 2 years ago. And if we relied on just waiting till a trade show to highlight that, we would be out of date, because trade shows happen once a year. The stuff like this, these new software implemented devices come out monthly, quarterly, and it's amazing to see such a large end user switch from that. I mean, because HSBC, they used to be one of the biggest with, having fully integrated solutions in their conference rooms and needing very complicated installations. And now this almost gives them the ability to, we're currently all working off, possibly, I'm on a little laptop doing this Zoom call with you guys. I didn't need it. I didn't need to go to, I could have gone into my conference room where I have a Cisco device that has the capability that works with Zoom, because we bought the extra module for $12,000. I could have gone in that room to do that, but why not just do this call in my office? And without any difficulty, I was able to join.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing we do use Zoom here at AVNation. We pay for it, so it's not a sponsorship. We have a couple different licenses. It's also what we use for webinars, like the one we had this past week. Luke, same kind of question. How are you adjusting your sales strategy, honestly, when it comes to this new design?
So we're kind of in a really interesting group on that. So we started out doing church audio 35 years ago. We moved into stadiums and performance halls in the 90s. And then we've done everything from athletics to performing arts centers, multi-purpose musical venues, still do a lot of churches, but we kind of stayed away from the corporate side. We do some auditoriums and training rooms, but we really stayed out of the boardroom, out of video conferencing for a long time. And probably about 2 years ago, when Zoom and soft codecs really started taking off, that's actually when we entered that market. So we haven't had to shift from Tandberg and hardware-based conferencing. We have just shifted into the boardroom and really aggressively attacking that space. And it's just been wonderful. We haven't had to overcome any issues or old ways of thinking. It's just been a very natural progression for us. And so we've been integrating that into our solutions and our designs, and we've just gotten nothing but positive feedback from our clients. We've had really good relationships with manufacturers that are partnering with Zoom and Teams and other soft codecs. We've done, type your Zoom room type. We've done your BYOD, but still centered around video conferencing type of setup, and thin client, whatever. And it's just been very successful and easy from my perspective.
All right, very cool. Yeah, you're probably one of the more unique people that have been able to kind of evolve with it, because you guys are just started doing it. Paul, again, Paul from AV Junction, staffing. How has this changed over the last 4 to 5 years in what you and your teams need to know and the skill sets?
Certainly. Well, I mean, I think as Brian alluded to, I think it has gotten easier. I mean, I think first and foremost, I'm really impressed with kind of the growth of Zoom. I mean, back in my sort of integration days, 4 or 5 years ago, we were sort of integrating, again, some codec type solutions, not cloud-based. Zoom was around, but it wasn't sort of quite there. And what I love about it is just the ease of use. I mean, as Brian said, I mean, we could have probably all gone into a conference room. We're in front of our laptops. It works. It's easy to use. And that sort of helps, I think, especially with this large rollout. Think of all the employees at HSBC. It's easy to use, and of course they're standardizing it across, which I think is extremely important for that kind of onboarding of these new solutions. So, I think this is going to be one of many large rollouts like this. I think Zoom has definitely done, an excellent job with, their technology and just making the ease of use simple. And, from an installation perspective and a design perspective, it is sort of plug and play. I mean, the actual hardware that you need is pretty minimal, and that I think makes it easier on everybody.
Very good. Gentlemen, that is where we are going to leave it. Thank you all so much. Mr. Luke Jordan from Electroacoustics in Fort Worth. Don't call it Dallas. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
How do people get a hold of you or Electroacoustics if they're so inclined?
Yeah, you can find us at eavi.com. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Jordan EAVI.
All right, very good. Mr. McClymans, my fellow Bears fan, thank you, sir. How do people get a hold of you or Peerless AV?
They can go to peerless-av.com, see our great new website that we launched.
Yes.
That is making everybody finally happy, which is awesome. Or they could send an email to me at first initial B, last name McClymans at peerless-av.com.
All right, very good. And Mr. Paul Weatherhead from AV Junction, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can visit our site, www.avjunction.com, or look me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. That way, love to chat.
All right, absolutely. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters. As I mentioned, I'm a Bears fan, so at this point, I got a 50-50 shot of being happy come Monday night. But more importantly for us, for AVNation, go by the website, avnation.tv. That is avnation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. While you're there, please check out our supporter section. These are the folks who help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and ResiWeek and CDA coverage and all that. And Peerless AV is one of those, so we thank them for their support. As far as the AVNation tour, as my buddy Chris Neto likes to say, get your pencils out because here we go. We will be in New Jersey and Vegas and Miami and London and New York sometime over the course of the next 3 weeks. So if you're going to the E4 event in New York, New Jersey, come by and say hi. I'll be moderating a panel there. If you were in the Las Vegas area this week, I will be moderating a panel at the T-Mobile Center in the home of the Golden Knights. As a hockey fan, very excited about that. I mentioned Chris Neto, my buddy. We are going to be hosting the live stream of the AV Magazine Awards from London, October 11th. So check that out. It will roughly be, if my math is correct, which again, Luke and I share that disability, it'll be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time on Friday the 11th. Really, really fun event. Lots of really great AV tweets. He and I land on Saturday the 12th, and then we turn right around and cover New York Digital Signage Week starting the 14th of October. So if you're in any of those areas, come by and say hi. I'll be hanging out with Brian McClymans during New York Digital Signage Week and a bunch of really great folks. So all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.